Episode 290. Reality isn't real. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. I like to get the thank yous out the way at the beginning in case you don't make it to the end. But hope you're all doing okay. Hope you're all well. I do appreciate there's probably a substantial number out there of people who don't believe in the rules, don't believe in the masks and all the rest of it, you know. So I appreciate your point of view. You know, I mean, there are what they are, the rules, and well, I followed them and I still got sick, so maybe there is something in that. But I just say stay safe, keep healthy, and I'm sure we can beat this the old COVID now, you know. So anyhow, as I've said in many of the last few episodes, I'm in a sort of isolation phase at the moment for a few weeks, working from home a lot as well. Did a lot of reading, a lot of scientific papers and things like that. It's quite highbrow, that, isn't it? You know, I've been looking at all sorts of stuff, and there's some amazing stuff out there. You're starting to realise there's some really, really clever people around, you know. So I got reading an article, and I read a few papers on this now because I found it really interesting, on how reality isn't real. It's really interesting, this. So basically, you know, we are the most intelligent creatures on the planet, probably in the universe. That's a different podcast though. But we know when we're conscious. We know when we can, you know, like I'm doing now, I'm talking to you, looking out the window, thinking things, articulating things, the brain's working, hopefully, you know, and I can communicate and I can think about things and I'm looking at things, I can hear things, I've got my headphones on, I'm doing a direct monitor so I can hear my voice in crystal clarity, you know. So to me, when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep at night, I'm conscious. And I'm in reality. I know this is reality. I've lived in it all my life. And, you know, when I have dreams and some very powerful lucid dreams, I know they're not real. I know it's not reality. There is always something. Maybe sometimes it's obvious. Maybe sometimes it's not so obvious. But there is usually something. There's something, you know, and even when you get a very compelling dream and you think it's real, and then you wake up, oh God, thank God it wasn't real, you know. So I think most people, like myself, we have a good, you know, grasp on reality and being conscious, and when we're asleep and when we're dreaming, and we can tell the difference, you know. And I do talk about a lot of the dreams, quite a lot actually. A lot of my episodes that I've done, a lot of my podcasts, I do mention some of the really strange dreams I've had over the years. The lucid dreams, the blind dreams, the waking up in your dreams multiple times, all this sort of stuff. And there was one thing I always say, and I was talking to someone the other day who's had some pretty, you know, funky dreams. I said, isn't it amazing how the brain can come up with these dreams, you know? You see people you've never seen before in the dreams, you know. You see places you've never been before. You know, isn't it incredible that the brain can come up with these things? And that sort of leads us quite nicely onto the fact that reality isn't real. So basically, stick with me on this. Imagine your brain is in your head, right? It's in your skull. Well, we know it is, but let's just imagine, you know, we don't need to go into too much graphical detail. I'm not a biologist. But it's in your head and it's isolated from the world. Imagine you didn't have any senses and you just had your brain in your skull, then they would be cold and dark and there'd be nothing. No matter how intelligent, you know, aware that the brain is, there'd be nothing, you know. So then, you know, how we've evolved is we have these fantastic senses. We can see, we can hear, we can smell, we can touch, we can feel, you know. It's fantastic. And touch and feel are the same thing, aren't we? But we can feel heat, we can feel cold. And we've got emotions. And I think what's very interesting is what you realise is that the reality we think we can see and understand is actually our brain telling us the reality based upon these sensory inputs. And what's really interesting is, as amazing and astounding as our sensory inputs are, they are pretty, I'm not saying they're rubbish, but the brain has its work cut out to get all this information and present it to you in such a way that makes sense, you know? I mean, as an example, just a silly example. So, if you look in a mirror and you look at one eye and you look across the other eye, you never see your eyes moving, okay? So there's a very simple test. Your brain's doing something here. You know, your brain's skipping a few frames here, you know? It's not giving you the full information. And there's some amazing, fantastic reasons why it wouldn't. So what we're seeing when you see things, you hear things, you smell things, it's all what your brain is telling you, and it's processing this information. It's doing amazing things, don't get me wrong. The brain is amazing, but what you're presented with in your brain is not reality. Reality is infinitely more complex than what we can see, that we can smell, that we can feel, that we can hear. And what your brain does is it basically takes this cacophony of information, makes sense of it, and then it presents it to you, you know, and that is your version of reality. So to suggest reality isn't real it sounds a bit extreme, but what essentially I'm saying is the real world isn't like we see it or live in it or we perceive it. What we are perceiving and hearing and seeing and feeling is what our brain is telling us. And our brain has a huge, massive job on its hands. It has to present you like with information as rapidly as possible, you know, in terms of your eyesight and hearing, and it combines the two. And then, I mean, a good example I always use is I remember driving, I drive hundreds of kilometers, whatever. And I'm very concentrated when I'm driving. I don't just drift off. I think I'm a fairly safe driver. I'm not going to say I'm a brilliant driver because I think everybody says that, but I'm a fairly safe driver. But I'll get somewhere. I've sort of forgotten the journey, really. You know, well, I wasn't asleep. I was actually actively doing it. But at some point, your brain's gone, throw that out. You don't need that anymore. You don't need every millisecond of that 2.5 hours of tedium. You don't need it anymore. So your brain is making, and these are some difficult decisions, and I hate that phrase, difficult decisions, you know, because it's usually very negative. But your brain has to give you the information you need as quickly as possible in some cases, you know, and it's there. So it does a lot of chopping. It chops a lot of information out, you know. There's a lot of things we're not perceiving. There's a lot of things going on that we're missing, you know. And that's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. This isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing because it means your brain is working really well and you're focusing on what really matters. But the long and the short of it is your perception or understanding of what is reality, it isn't actually real at all. It is a really beautiful, most amazing presentation to you from what has to be one of the most outstanding things in the universe, and that's the brain inside your skull. Thank you for listening.